Good morning, Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm great, John. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Paul, it's an absolute pleasure to have you participate in our CTO News vlog series. I think this has been a long time in the making, and it's absolutely fantastic to have you on board and participate. We're looking forward to learning more about your background and your extensive experience within the tech sector in various environments. So, without further ado, please can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, thank you, John. Yeah, it's probably been about a year that we've been talking about doing this. So I am Paul Edwards. I'm Chief Technology Officer for a company called Ansor, who are a private equity fund focused on small medium businesses in the UK.
Brilliant. Excellent. We'll look forward to learning more about Ansor and your extensive experience. So, my first question, Paul, is this always intrigues me. How did you get into IT and how did you get into, whether it be, your current role?
So I didn't do anything to do with IT at university. I did a degree in biology at Southampton, and I think I was always very interested in kind of ecology, evolution, zoology, those types of things. But it was around as I graduated, it was really around the time that the internet was starting to kind of pick up a bit of speed back in the late 90s, and um, I just got a really interesting offer to go and work with some guys who were building a startup in financial services using internet and new technologies, and it kind of went from there, really.
Amazing, amazing. It sounds as though that you sort of moved from focusing on solely technical skills to
Hmm.
prioritizing whether it be your how can I say it from that sort of um, what's the word, biology, or from
Hmm.
a certain experience or a certain environment, you then transitioned into that sort of tech space. And would you
Yeah.
say that was a fortunate opportunity that came along, or how did that opportunity
Yes.
come along to for you?
Yeah, it was absolutely fortunate. I don't think it was really, I was talking to someone yesterday about this. I don't, there are lots of points in my career that I've taken opportunities that weren't particularly intentional.
Hmm.
That I have, an opportunity's come along, and I've been very fortunate, A, that opportunity has arisen, but I've also been in a position where I've been able to take it. So yeah, it's not something my career, I wouldn't say is something I've planned to the nth degree.
Understood. Excellent. So as you've mentioned, your career spans, whether it be from digital delivery to strategic technology leadership. How has your perspective on building high-performing tech teams evolved over the years?
I've been really fortunate, particularly in the last, I'd say, 10 years, where I've been working in consulting, um, and particularly in engineering businesses that focus on continuous delivery, self-organized teams. A lot of the principles that I think really kind of back high-performing teams in terms of uh, giving them ownership, trusting them, giving them the right tools to do their jobs, and really moving away from, I suppose, the old-fashioned ways of working around high levels of kind of PMO, micromanagement, etc. And really, when you look at high-performing teams these days, they all have similar traits, and they all seem to be, experienced people, experienced engineers with a real product focus, and using the kind of being free to use kind of tools and techniques that really allow them to work at pace.
Absolutely. Would you say that, the likes of whether it be team culture and, sort of the psychological safety or
Mhm.
the alignment with business goals is obviously quite key as well in order to
Yeah,
we have
yeah,
that.
it's really important. I think a lot, particularly when I was working in consultancies, um, a lot of the businesses I work with didn't do that particularly well, didn't do the communication of the overall business goals down to the technical teams very well at all. And often there's an assumption that technical teams aren't interested in the overall business goals, but actually they are, and they're often just not included in those conversations, or they're not put in an environment where the work that they do is clearly, is clearly aligned to what the business actually wants to achieve. And the sooner you can do that, and the more you can make that transparent, I think the better. So really showing teams the impact of the work they do on whatever the overall goal is, whether that's improving the bottom line or improving the, increasing the number of customers or just improving the customer experience, making that super transparent for them so they can see that is absolutely important.
Absolutely. I think it's the same thing in any environment where, that sort of high level reporting to your, say, for example, executive C-suite board
Hmm.
is still relevant at
Hmm.
sort of, the grassroots level in an organization. Excellent. Okay. So at Ansor LLP, you're shaping tech strategy in a
Hmm.
private equity environment. What's unique about leading technology in this type of investment-driven context?
I think what really kind of attracted me to this role is that I suppose moving on from that last question really is private equity driven businesses are very clear, I think, on their outcome. There's a clear set of KPIs and goals that private equity owned businesses want to achieve, and therefore it becomes much more straightforward to tie a technical strategy to that because it's pretty well understood and clear. Whereas I think some other businesses that I've worked with actually didn't really know what their business strategy was, or their
Mm,
business strategy was defined in a way that it was actually quite hard to see where technology fitted in. Particularly the businesses that we're working with, the smaller kind of businesses, the sometimes kind of small founder-owned companies. Um, there's a real opportunity there for technology to make a really big impact on their day to day.
yeah. I think that's really key as well. I think, that for such organizations, it's an absolute lifeblood to have
Hmm.
that types of technology. So absolutely can see where there needs to be clear outcomes set in order to achieve those
Hmm.
goals and achievements.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've worked across media, healthcare, retail,
Mhm.
and consulting, as you've mentioned. How do you adapt your technology approach to such different sectors?
I don't think I have actually.
Okay.
I think the same approach works in whatever field. I think something that as an industry, I don't think we're particularly good at, or something we do that is not particularly constructive is I think people get pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And people are often looking for the sort of perfect CV when putting people into roles, and often looking for deep levels of industry experience where that's not always particularly necessary, and um, often bringing people from who've got experience of working in different industries, solving different problems,
Yeah.
or sometimes solving the same problem but in a different context, um, is much more valuable, I think, than having someone who's got sort of 20 plus years experience just in one industry sector. So I'd say it probably hasn't.
That's really amazing. And I think, it shows that you have a clear strategy and approach and
Mhm.
process that is adaptable is agnostic really to the sectors that you're involved in, and you're able to sort of take on the various experiences that you have and sort of replicate that like a spin cycle, some might say.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay. From your time at and digital to now,
Mhm.
AI has grown rapidly. What's your perspective on the right way for organizations to adapt generative AI or to adopt generative AI, sorry.
I think being very being very aware of what the benefits are, and being very aware of the needs that you're trying to, the problem you're trying to solve. Um, I think there's a lot of noise at the moment, and finding the exact kind of the right fit in your business is really important. There's some brilliant tools out there, and there are some brilliant case studies of how it's improving in specific areas. But I don't think it's the kind of golden bullet that a lot of people see. I think the first thing to do is to make sure the sort of fundamentals are in place. So um, if your data isn't in a particularly good state, you're not going to really get the benefits from from adopting some of the AI tools out there. Similarly, if some of your business processes and your technical processes aren't good, if they're not, if they're slow, if they're clunky, if you've got kind of lots of sort of change gates involved which don't allow for rapid iteration,
Yeah.
again, you're probably not going to see the benefits from any type of AI tool. I've seen people adopt AI in the wrong place, and actually it's just improving the wrong part of the cycle and actually doesn't
Mm,
speed anything up. So yeah, it's knowing your business really well, it's knowing your processes really well, it's having the data foundations in place, and then sort of either partnering with someone who knows what they're doing to identify which of the new tools is the right one to adopt.
absolutely. And as you said, it's really starting with the real problems, not the hype, i.e., focusing on
Yeah.
enhancing human capability whilst ensuring strong governance and integrated IE into workflows with clear goals and data readiness, as you've just mentioned.
hmm
Brilliant. All right. So, with continuous delivery and agile transformation being consistent themes in your work, what do you think organizations must still, will it be, actually, sorry, Paul, let me redo that question.
Sorry.
Okay. With continuous delivery and agile transformation being consistent themes in your work, what do you think organizations still misunderstand about modern software engineering?
It's a really good question. I think that it's predictable. I
Mhm.
think the tensions I often see in businesses is that a lot of senior people in industries still don't understand the nature of high-end software development. What a really productive team actually looks like. And so often teams are forced into making promises or defining things far too early or getting themselves into kind of traps which they then sort of can't get out of. Software is very different to other types of production, I suppose, in the sense that we're in a fortunate position to be able to get very rapid feedback and understanding of um, how the things that we build are actually used by customers or how they perform. Um, so sort of trying to predict what you're going to be building and what your customers are going to value 6 to 12 months in advance is always a bit of a bit of a trap to fall into. Being able to kind of build towards a set of goals, but allow the kind of flexibility, rapid development, being able to take feedback and be able to actually adapt to that feedback without having to go through kind of very onerous project management sign-off type processes.
Right.
Um, I've always seen pays itself back in multiples.
Absolutely. So where we are at IT Labs, as an example, it's often said that, we treat Agile and DevOps as potential checklists in terms of
Mhm.
what we've seen in the marketplace and not culture.
Mm.
So, speed alone isn't really the goal. It's really about delivering the right value quickly and sustainably.
Mhm.
And that's really what the focus is. So completely agree with you. All right. So my sixth question is, looking back at your work with businesses like Zara and Lloyd's Pharmacy, what's one transformation project you're particularly proud of and why?
Huh. Um, I think it's the project I'm most proud of is probably the work I did for Channel 4 at the London 2012 Paralympics.
Amazing.
Um, Being able to we transformed a lot in terms of how uh, Paralympic sport is viewed. So people often talk about the technological transformation, but technology is always just an enabler. So actually, you should always look at the impact that the technology has had,
Yeah.
particularly on the people. And I think what what was great there was that we used technology in a very positive way to really kind of build up the stories and promote the stories of the people involved, and really kind of treat the athletes as athletes and put their sports in the public eye in a really good and professional way, I think. And I think whether it was introducing kind of streaming or data overlays or other ways of breaking down some of the barriers to understanding and appreciating the sport, I think that was a massive win.
Amazing, amazing. Do you know, that's really interesting because I recently launched or published my CTO News Thursday
hmm
vlog episode, or sorry, CTO News Thursday LinkedIn piece, and there was I quoted a chap by the name of Brian Robert, who is the chairman of Comcast,
Hmm.
and they've just whether it be renewed or re-engaged their partnership with NBC Universal
Hmm.
and Comcast to provide the 2036 Olympics
Hmm.
in terms of coverage. So that was quite interesting to read about, and I can appreciate that. That is, it seems like such a mammoth task, in terms of
Hmm.
making sure you're getting the right piece of content to the
Yeah,
right individuals in the right time without missing a step. You think about all those various other countries who want specific feeds based
yeah,
on their own individual athletes.
yeah,
You
yeah.
it's
And when
really
you consider
impressive.
the number of different events, and when you then look at the Paralympics, and that's kind of multiplied because of the different classifications.
Yeah,
So the complexity, yeah, the people who run all the kind of streaming and data and results infrastructure are absolute heroes, I think, what they get through.
absolutely. Yeah, very, very true. Brilliant. Okay, so what's your leadership philosophy when guiding technical teams, especially in times of rapid change like the AI boom?
Hmm. Um, Leadership philosophy. I think it's probably, um, I think it's a lot of it's to do with trust.
Yeah,
I think it's trust, it's transparency. I think a lot of so many of the things that I've seen go wrong with leadership or running teams often comes down to basic communication. Either people withholding information or not sharing information, or the wrong information being provided. And it's often a two-way thing, right? I think it's not just the teams providing updates and status and those sorts of things, and how well they're doing to the senior teams, but it's equally the senior teams giving prompt and valuable feedback and information back again. I think that is always, if you do just one thing and you really focus on communication and making the work transparent and making decisions transparent, I think it goes a huge way, really long way to building out a successful team.
absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. So my final question, Paul, is what's a piece of conventional wisdom in tech leadership that you think should be challenged or even discarded in today's AI-driven world?
Huh. Um, Tech leadership and this, I mean, there's so much that even now, what is it, 30, possibly even 40 years of knowing what good looks like um, in terms of agile, in terms of extreme programming, DevOps, all of these things that keep cropping up, which ultimately most of them at their fundamentals
Yeah.
are working to the same principles, right? It's about working in small incremental pieces of work, uh, measuring, taking feedback, collaborative work, self-organized work, all of these things. If you look at the principles across all of those types of working,
Mhm.
they sort of roughly overlap with a lot of these principles. And if you look at sort of traditional project management, it goes very much against that.
Mhm.
People try and feel there's efficiencies of scale in sort of building out large pieces of work. People put in place estimates that are sort of signed off on as being promises rather than kind of best guesses at the time.
Yeah.
So really sort of try and move away from all of those sort of old-fashioned ways of working around very predictable, prescribed types of working, and actually building out the environment that teams can be trusted and I suppose given the tools and the autonomy to do their best work.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think also in terms of that idea that tech should be sort of follow the business,
Hmm.
in terms of in many cases, technology now leads business innovation. So
Hmm.
tech leadership must be strategic and not
Hmm.
necessarily reactive, which is
Yeah.
sometimes what's being seen. Amazing. So one of my last questions, actually, my final question, should I say, is If you could share, what's the most thought-provoking book that you have read that you may want to share with our audience,
I
whether it be
thought,
relating to technology or just in any other fields?
um, thought-provoking book. Um, Hang on one sec. Um, I mean, I'm a big fan of Dave Farley,
Okay.
big software engineering guru. I am not a software engineer by kind of trade, I suppose, but the way he clearly articulates the sort of principles that he has always followed and where he's seen success, really cut through with me and you know being able to kind of understand what good looks like at the really kind of deep engineering level, and then being able to kind of, I suppose, take that higher up the stack into kind of planning work, communicating work, working with senior people, working with customers, etc., has really helped me.
Amazing, amazing. Do you know, I think everyone's going to look up Dave Farley and learn more about his work and what he's sort of brought to the sector. I think it's always good to learn, or understand the sort of inspirations or
Mhm.
the books that have, helped technology leaders like yourself along their careers. So thank you for sharing. Well, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure learning more about you from your days of, studying biology at university and then getting into sort of the tech world, watching how, or understanding, should I say, how you build high-performing teams, whether it be looking at unique sort of leadership approaches within the sort of private equity environment, which is clearly based on understanding the outcomes that need to be delivered and then, when you're sort of adapting your tech approach to different sectors, it's really, from your standpoint, nothing really changes because you've been able to leverage the same principles across various sectors. And then you've mentioned in terms of whether it be the right way for organizations to adopt generative AI, is really having fundamentals in place, i.e., having the right data, the right processes. And then in terms of understanding, what organizations still misunderstand about modern software engineering, from your sort of guidance, it's really about being predictable. And because in some environments, as you've mentioned, senior leadership do not still understand how high performing teams sort of deliver software development, which can be obviously improved. And then where you've mentioned, what's one transformation project that you're most proud of, you've mentioned Channel 4 and the Paralympics, and it's great to learn about that and your involvement there. And then when it comes down to your leadership philosophy in terms of whether it be in times of rapid change, you've mentioned trust and transparency are key, as well as basic communications that has to be leveraged across the IT function. And then, with regards to or the final question, which was what conventional wisdom should be challenged in today's AI-driven world, you've mentioned and you've shared knowing what good looks like, because obviously the idea that tech should follow the business, really could be the case, but in some or in many cases, it's really about tech leading business innovation. So technology leadership must be strategic and not reactive. And then finally, it's been a pleasure to learn about Dave Farley, who has been an interesting author in the software space that you would like to share with our audience. So, thank you very much, Paul, for everything that you've shared, and let me hand over to you, please, for the final words.
Thanks, John. It's been really enjoyable. And yeah, hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you.